Here in this plate, right here, this is what the USDA or the Agriculture Department has given to the American people to try to get them to eat better, more balanced meals. So the point of this plate is that every time you have a meal, half should be fruits and veggies. A quarter should be meat and protein, or protein. And another quarter should be grains and starches. So this is one way, a much simpler way to try to get Americans to eat better. That looks funny. All right, let me erase all my drawings. The human body, well, of course you need fuel and materials to grow and heal, and that's what nutrients are. They're required for survival. You have macronutrients, carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. You need those in a much larger amount, hence the term macro. Let me also add water to this list, although you don't really make any ATP from water. You do need water to survive. But anyway, carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, with these, you are able to make ATP. And if you remember, ATP is the cellular fuel. The micronutrients are vitamins and minerals, and you need these in a much smaller amount. And then essential nutrients, these are nutrients humans cannot make themselves, so they have to be eaten. These include things like, there's about 8 to 12 amino acids and quite a few fatty acids. Fatty acids will be found in triglycerides, among other things. Appetite control. You do have a number of mechanisms to, oh, hello. Let's see. You do have a couple of mechanisms that help you control your appetite. Those are in this table below. And let me show you what I'm talking about, this table below. These top two, insulin and leptin, these are going to suppress appetite, whereas these bottom two, neuropeptide Y and ghrelin, are going to enhance appetite. So I want to ask a question here for you, because I believe I have somebody with me. Yay! Can you hear me okay? And I believe you can type in the chat box if you can, please. We're talking about metabolism. And again, what metabolism is, it's referring to all the chemical reactions in your body. So it's the way that we alter the nutrients we take in. And the two main reactions of metabolism are anabolism and catabolism. Anabolism is building. So it's taking amino acids and building the proteins you need, and taking the fatty acids and building the fats you need. Whereas catabolism is breaking down. So this is when you eat a piece of steak, which is chock full of protein. This is how you break it down into the amino acids you need. Okay, let me erase that here. All right, the first macronutrient we're going to talk about is carbohydrates. Carbohydrates includes things like sugar and starches. Sugars are usually smaller than starches. The main reason we like carbohydrates because our cells use them to power cellular processes. In other words, we're going to make ATP out of carbohydrates. The chief one here is glucose. Glucose is the molecule that our cells use to make ATP. if you remember cellular respiration from Chapter 3. Excesses in carbohydrates lead to obesity, dental caries, which is cavities, and nutritional deficits. Here's one of the culprits. This is sucrose, or table sugar. It is a glucose plus a fructose molecule, so this is a disaccharide. Deficiencies can be harmful as well. You can get metabolic acidosis, meaning you're changing your body's pH to become more acidic, or you can have weight loss. And I'm not talking like the good, you lose 5 pounds weight loss. I mean the not so good. Okay. Okay, here we go. All right, what are our carbohydrate sources? Well, usually what we eat carbohydrates that are polysaccharides. Poly means many, and again, saccharide is sugar. In general, starch and glycogen are the two main polysaccharides we ingest. Starch is how plants, or the polysaccharide of plants. Glycogen is the polysaccharide found in meat. And if we go over here, we can see this is potatoes, and this is the starch. And again, this is a polysaccharide, so this means many glucose molecules strung together. At the top here, we have glucose molecules, and this is how animals string them together. They string them together in glycogen. Unfortunately, we don't store too much of this. It's stored primarily in your muscles, hence this picture, and some in your liver. Simple carbohydrates are disaccharides from milk sugar. This would be lactose. These would be maltoses. These are plant sugars. And monosaccharides, like glucose, can be found in honey and fruits. Carbohydrate sources. Again, we're still talking about polysaccharides, but we're going to be talking about cellulose here. Cellulose is a polysaccharide. Again, these are glucose molecules, but we lack the enzymes to break this bond. So these are not digested. So this is fiber or roughage that helps you go to the restroom. Basically, when we break down complex carbohydrates, what we're doing is we're making monosaccharides to be absorbed. So we're breaking down starches and glycogen for the glucose molecules. And these are the monosaccharides we use. The more important one here is glucose. This is what our cells love. Fructose over here, you might have heard of this in high fructose corn syrup. Fruit sugars, very important. And galactose is over here. This is a milk sugar, or sugar found in milk. So a glucose and a galactose molecule together form lactose. These are also galactose, glucose, and fructose. They're isomers. In other words, they have the same chemical formula, C6H12O6. So our body can freely convert one to the other. So should we drink a soda, we can take that fructose and convert it into glucose easily. Excuse me. All right. Now, what do we do with carbohydrates when we ingest them? First, we undergo, we take those carbohydrates, whatever they are, and we digest them. Again, this is catabolism, and we break them down into the monosaccharides. The monosaccharide are used to make, or used by the cells in cellular respiration, and that makes our friend ATP. Once we've made all the ATP, we can store a few of our monosaccharides as glycogen. This is what's called glycogenesis. Genesis means to begin or create. Again, we store this in liver and in muscle. We don't store a lot of it, just a little bit. So if even after we've made all glycogen we get lipogenesis. Genesis again means creating, and you're creating a lipid. And you're going to be creating a fat from glucose, and I'll show you how that's done in the next slide. Now, don't, this is kind of a busy slide here. This is just showing you cellular respiration and the 3 steps of cellular respiration. Down here, over here, this is showing you how blood glucose becomes glycogen. And at the bottom here, this is showing you, this is lipogenesis. This is showing you how glucose becomes a triglyceride. And for the glucose to become a triglyceride, it's converted into glycerol. Glycerol is the backbone for triglycerides. In other words, glycerol plus 3 fatty acids form a triglyceride. As with everything, well, there are good and bad carbs. We'll talk about that in a moment. It's recommended that you take in at least 175 grams of carbohydrates. The average diet, we tend to take in a bit more. And there are good carbs and bad carbs. Most popular diet plans group everything into bad carbs. But a good carb would be a polysaccharide, something it takes a little longer to get to the glucose. So you got to break some bonds to get to the glucose. A bad carb would be something that is easily converted into glucose. It doesn't take much digestion. And unfortunately, these are tasty. So. Lipids. Okay, these are fats and oils. They form things like phospholipids and cholesterols. They help make our cell membranes. And dietarily, the most common is the triglyceride. And again, this is the triglyceride over here. Here's the glycerol molecule. This is what glucose can be converted into. And then these are the fatty acids. And you have 3, hence the name triglyceride. What can excess lead to? Obesity. Get the nice beer belly here. It can increase your serum cholesterols and heart disease. Again, cholesterol is another type of lipid. Deficiencies can lead to weight loss, not the good kind, the extreme kind, skin lesions, and hormonal imbalances. A lot of young ladies who happen to be anorexic or bulimic won't have their periods. That's because estrogen, the female hormone, is a lipid. So the lack of lipids leads to hormonal imbalances. Where do we get lipids? Normally what we get is triglycerides and my tool here. Saturated fats come mainly from animal origin. So these are things like butter and lard. Now, saturated fats can be bad. They can cause a risk of cardiovascular disease. Unsaturated fats are usually plant fats, and these are the healthiest. These are found in seeds and nuts and oils like peanut oil and olive oil. Saturated fats tend to be liquid at room temperature, unsaturated fats tend to be a liquid at room temperature, whereas saturated tend to be solid at room temperature. And another lipid our body needs is cholesterol, and you can get these in egg yolks. These are found mostly from animal sources. Okay, so there are all types of lipids in the food, a variety of functions, but the main reason is fats supply energy. And what I mean by supply energy is when fats are used to make ATP, they make more ATP than, say, a carbohydrate or a protein. So that's what this calories. So gram for gram, fats contain 9 calories per gram. So they're able to make twice as much ATP as, say, a carbohydrate or a protein. So this right here is why we store lipids. You're going to get more energy. And right under your skin, there's an almost unlimited source or a limited area of where you can store lipids. Okay, let me get rid of these drawings. Okay. Fats from foods. When we take in fats, we go hydrolysis, and if you remember, hydrolysis was a term meaning breaking it down, and we break it down into 2 parts, the glycerol and the fatty acids. So let's keep with the glycerol first. The glycerol, well, it can be converted into glucose, and that will be made into ATP. Or the glycerol itself can be converted into acetyl coenzyme A, and that fits neatly into the citric acid cycle. And again, you make ATP from the citric acid cycle. Fatty acids can be converted into fats. This usually takes place in the lipids, in the liver. Fatty acids can be made into ketone bodies, which can then be made into acetyl coenzyme A, and these enter the citric acid cycle, and they're used to make ATP. Triglycerides, again, they're digested into fatty acids and glycerol. This occurs in the liver. And then anabolism, you can make the triglycerides you need. You can make lipoproteins. We're going to talk about those in the next slide. You can make some fatty acids that you might need, except the essential ones. You can go ahead and make cholesterols, or you can make phospholipids for the cell membranes. Nope, wrong button. So lipids have a wide variety of functions, but what I want to focus on is the term lipoprotein here. This is lipids combined with proteins. These are very important because they're going to help transport lipids in the blood. Remember, the blood is mostly water, and lipids don't really like water. They're not water soluble. I want to talk about the 2 you probably heard of. The LDL, this is low density lipoprotein, otherwise known as bad cholesterol. This transports about 75% of the cholesterol in the blood, and it can deliver the cholesterol to your body cells, but sometimes what happens, it deposits that cholesterol in fatty plaques, and that can lead to heart disease. HDL is high-density lipoprotein. That means it's got a high amount of protein, and this is called the good cholesterol. Not only can it transport cholesterol to body cells, but it can deliver them to the liver for elimination. So any excess is not deposited in the arteries, it's eliminated via the liver. This one is very low density lipoprotein, and it's associated with triglyceride content. They don't normally measure for this one, but if you have a high VLDL number, that means you might be more at risk for heart disease or stroke. And of course, with everything, you have the good and the bad. It is recommended by the American Heart Association that fats or lipids not exceed 30% of your total calories. And your good fats come from natural sources like salmon and avocado and nuts. Where's your bad fats? These are, well, some animal fats like butter and cheese, but also the ones trans fats, which are not natural, yet they are very tasty. Proteins, the last of the macronutrients, are polymers of amino acids. They do a whole bunch of different things. They're structural, like your hair and your muscle. They're enzymes, hormones, plasma proteins, and as a latch, because they're so structural, they can be used to supply energy. In other words, you can use proteins to make ATP, but that's kind of the last resort. The waste product is urea. We'll talk about that in a moment. If you eat nothing but proteins and eat in excess, that can lead to obesity, but deficiencies can lead to problems in growing, anemia, muscle wasting, and extreme weight loss. Okay. Nope, I've lost my cursor. Here we go. Protein, it's digested into amino acids. Okay. These amino acids then can be anabolized to form proteins, and those proteins could be structural, enzymes, hormones, or plasma proteins. Or the proteins can be converted into glucose or fats, or they can be converted into a portion of cellular respiration, like the citric acid cycle. Okay, there we go. Now, if you're using proteins as an energy source, they undergo hydrolysis to get your amino acids, and then they undergo what's called deamination. That means you remove the NH2 group or the amine group. And this waste forms urea, which is a byproduct of that. Now, the deaminated parts, the carboxylic acid and other parts, can be used as glucose, stored as fat, or again, as I mentioned earlier, they can be converted into segments that fit nicely into the citric acid cycle and used to make ATP. Protein sources, a whole bunch of protein sources, meats and fishes and poultries, but you can also get vegetarian options such as nuts and milk and eggs, depending on whether you're vegan or vegetarian. Sometimes legumes, pasta and peas have a whole bunch of proteins. All the proteins in our body are made up of 20 amino acids. 12 are non-essential, meaning that your body can synthesize these. The rest are called essential amino acids. This means that your body, you need to ingest them. Your body cannot make them. Because we do not generally use protein as an energy source, we don't really need to eat a lot of protein. It should only take in about 10% of a person's diet. However, we manage to take in more than we should. Now, the whole point of eating carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, again, is to make energy for metabolism. And again, metabolism is referring to all the chemical reactions occurring in the body. catabolism is breaking down, and sometimes I'll memorize it. Catabolism is like cats like to shred things to sharpen their claws, so they'll break down your curtains and your furniture, although I do like cats. And anabolism is building, making what you need, more complex molecules. Deficiencies in either carbohydrates, fats, or proteins can lead to death, and excesses can lead to obesity. And we need calories or energy for almost every activity. Here we go. If we're walking upstairs or running or jogging, we need a lot of energy to keep our bodies going. However, even when we're, binge watching Breaking Bad or something like that, we still need a few calories. Unfortunately, not as much as when we exercise. And those calories we need when we're at rest are referred to as your basal metabolic rate. And again, your body is expending energy because you're maybe digesting, you're breathing in and out, your heart's beating, your muscles need to have a certain tone. So again, this is supporting activities of various organs. It can vary with gender, body size, body temperature, and endocrine function. Remember that hormones such as the thyroxines or the thyroid hormones regulate metabolism. And again, your basal metabolic rate can change depending on pregnancy or what phase of growth you're in, among other things. Energy balance. Basically, energy balance, you need to bring in calorically what you put out. So you need to eat as much as you exercise or output through your basal metabolic rate and muscle activity. So if you have a positive energy balance, that means you're eating more than what your body needs to maintain itself through the basal metabolic rate and through activity. Desirable weight. The reason why I have all these pictures over here is because desirable weight has a lot of different connotations. It depends on socioeconomic times. This was desirable weight back in the Baroque period during the feast and famine cycles. This meant she had money and could probably have babies. This is what the ideal weight or the ideal female looked like at the turn of the 19th or the turn of the 20th century, around the 1900s. And of course, here are the Victoria's Secret's idealized woman of today. So, desirable weight is rather difficult to determine. There's a whole bunch of things, not only nutritional disorders, but sociology or socio-ecological or economical trends. Our body mass index, the BMI, is how we assess whether we are at a good weight, and it takes into account height and weight. So let me show you what that looks like. So by taking your height and your weight, you can see whether you're at a healthy weight in yellow or a moderately overweight or severely overweight. At least 30% of Americans fall into the orange and red categories. Okay, now we're going to be talking about the micronutrients, the nutrients we need in lesser amounts. We're going to start with vitamins, and I always think of Flintstone vitamins, but you might be different. Vitamins are organic compounds. They're essential for metabolic processes. In other words, they're going to be helping enzymes and things like that. Our bodies really don't make a lot of vitamins. We do make vitamin D, but generally we have to ingest our vitamins. Vitamins are classified as either fat-soluble, as you can store them in fat, or water-soluble, meaning they dissolve in water. Fat-soluble vitamins, you can store, that's A, D, E, and K, you can store an overabundant amount of these, so they can lead to toxicity. Whereas water-soluble vitamins, these are your B vitamins and vitamin C, these, if you eat too much or you're taking a multivitamin, you usually tend to excrete it out. There are a few fallacies associated with vitamins. More vitamins the better, and again, not really. Too much water-soluble vitamins are excreted, whereas fat-soluble vitamins, can build up and cause some harm. A varied diet provides all the needed vitamins, usually, but if you're pregnant or breastfeeding or undergoing probably certain health issues, you do need to probably take a multivitamin. And vitamins provide energy. Your body does not use vitamins to make ATP. Vitamins are going to help the enzymes that are going to help your body make ATP, or your cells make ATP from carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Minerals. When I think of minerals, I think of Gatorade. Probably not the best example, but minerals are inorganic. Again, they're essential to human metabolism. They usually come from soils from plants, so we don't make minerals. We usually have to ingest them. Minerals are roughly responsible for 4% of our body weight. Minerals are concentrated in our bones and in our teeth. Even though minerals are inorganic, they are important to organic molecules. For example, phospholipids have the phosphate group. Hemoglobin, which is the protein that carries oxygen in the blood, has iron. And then iodine is important for the thyroid hormones. Minerals are important for structure. You have a lot of mechanisms in place to control the amounts of minerals in bodily fluids, and you can gain metal toxicity through pollutants and things like that. You might have heard of lead poisoning from eating old paint and things like that. We don't really get rid of the amounts of some metals, like heavy metals, like lead. We just kind of tend to keep them in our bodies. The major minerals, even though you don't need a lot of minerals, these are the major ones, or the ones that appear most commonly. The two main ones are calcium and phosphorus. These are part of the bones, so this is what are stored in our bones. But again, you need potassium, sulfur, sodium, chloride, magnesium. If you remember sodium and potassium, these are important for neuronal transmission. Trace elements, you need extremely small amounts. These include things like iron and manganese and copper, fluorine and selenium. So if you ever wondered why multivitamins had these weird minerals in there, now you know. Your body needs them. So this is talking about dietary supplements. And what a dietary supplement, it's intended to contain a dietary ingredient such as a vitamin or a mineral. A couple things that can go wrong. Some of these vitamins and minerals can interact with medications. So they can cause your medications not to work as well, or work a little too well. And scientific evidence is not really out there. Just because something says it has coenzyme Q or something of that nature doesn't mean it actually does. So the dietary supplement's not really regulated as heavily as other parts of our diet. Healthy eating. Again, the whole concept of healthy eating is just to get what you need, fatty acids, essential amino acids, vitamins, and minerals for optimal growth and repair body tissues. Again, these requirements are going to vary with age, physical activity, environmental factors. And the recommended daily allowance, we see this mostly on the cereal boxes or candy wrappers on the labeling. This is the stuff you usually tend to ignore when we're eating. We also have the food pyramid. I'm going to show you the actual food pyramid. This food pyramid over here makes me chuckle. Anyway, I'm kind of fond of the happiness paper hat myself. Okay, as promised, here is the actual food pyramid. And again, this preceded the plate, and I find this one kind of hard to read, so hence why they went to the plate one that I showed in the beginning of this lecture. This represents exercise. It's a reminder of Americans to get up and move at least 30 minutes a day. The orange is grains, vegetables and greens, red there's fruits, and the size of these triangles remind you is kind of symbolic of how much of these you're supposed to eat. So you have a really thin triangle in oils. This is milk, and this is proteins. Malnutrition. Malnutrition is poor nutrition. It can result either in undernutrition, meaning a deficiency in that essential nutrients, or it could be overnutrition, an excess of nutrient intake. So malnutrition could be from diet alone. And secondary malnutrition, you have an adequate diet, but the individual characteristics make the diet insufficient. For example, if you're an extremely picky eater, you may not get the primary nutrients that you need. Up here is Patchy the Pirate from SpongeBob. One of the pirates were called scurvy dogs, and scurvy is a deficiency in vitamin C, led to their teeth falling out. And here is a child suffering from protein deficiency here. Now, starvation can be a type of nutrient disorder. Two of these, and let me get my spotlight here, two of these here are from either lack of nutrition, just not having any, or the Corsicore was protein starvation, and that was the little boy in the previous slide. These forms of starvation have more psychological connotations to them, and they're a bit harder to treat. Again, a healthy human can survive 50 to 75 days without food, whereas you can only survive 3 days tops without water. If you are starving, low blood pressure, chills, dry skin, and poor immunity. What I have on the right here are just kind of characterizations of anorexia. Well, actually, this woman is anorexic, but bulimia, it's hard to find a non-gross picture of someone with bulimia. But again, these are primarily psychological disorders. And that is the end of my presentation. Let me go back to the beginning. And I hope I'm not making you dizzy doing this. Let me try it over here. This is the plate I was talking about, much more simplistic than the pyramid. Every time you eat, just eat half fruits and veggies, and a quarter meat and a quarter grains, and then you don't have to worry about the pyramid at all. That is all the material I have to present. I am happy to ask you any questions. I don't know if you have a microphone here. Let me see. I can unmute you, or if you don't wish to do that, you can type in a question in the chat. Let me see. Okay. I believe that allows you to ask a question. Okay, or you can type one in the chat box. But that is all the material I have to present to you this evening. Thank you.